at a record pace.
I mean, you had one run 6:06 at American River earlier that year, so you were in good shape. And Jim, of course, we were talking to you before. You had run the course 2 weeks before, got a nice sunburn like Kurt had, and that's why you had all the zinc oxide on. And then the week before the race, he had run with his partner the ride and tie, and his horse was polite enough to smash him into a tree. And so you were coming in a little banged up.
So 2 weeks before, a group of us went over the snow because we were concerned about the markings, and it wasn't marked yet. And so we were going over and trying to spot the old ribbons, and we did spot the old ribbons, but it took hours, and we'd go off this way. No, that's not it. And so when it came race day, I knew where to go. The group of us figured it out 2 weeks before, but I got a huge sunburn and lips were destroyed. And then I go into the ride and tie, and then my horse, a branch hit me, and then it was just exploded. And so I was a mess going into the Western States. But
yeah, that might have been good for you. You had to keep the pace down and stay at it. So I mean, like I say, Jim, you rolled into Red Star Ridge, 16 minutes up on the rest of the field, and then you go out into the snow and get lost. And I made a note here, when you rolled into Duncan, you were 35 minutes behind the leader, and you'd gone from first to 15th, right?
Yeah,
So
I actually went, when I finally got back on course, I'd gone from first place to 30th place, and then I was able to, by Duncan, I was able to get back up to 15th. But what I didn't know, because we were briefed to stay on top of the ridge, that the trail stayed on the top of the ridge, so I was judging the ridge by where it fell off on the right-hand side. I kind of kept an eye on it. But I didn't know that the ridge divided into 3 ridges at that point. So I'm off on the right, going around and around, looking for those little yellow ribbons. And then I finally discovered the middle ridge. And so I run way far down it. And then off to the left, I see this beautiful ridge way off in the distance. And I realized that's the course. And I look down, and there's a huge chasm between me and it. And I thought, that's it, Western States, 1983, I blew it. Then I thought, wait a minute. And I just had that kind of moment. I remember the Bible verses, anything too hard for God. And I thought, my job is just to run my very best race. So I'll just do that and leave the results up to God. So fortunately, I did not go down that canyon. I went back to where the ridges joined and got back on course, and I'd gone from first to 30th.
wow. So and you had just kind of rolled in with the rest of the pack, the lead group. I mean, not any too far up. You were rolling in there like 10th or 8th. I think I have a note here. 8th place in there somewhere.
I didn't exactly know what place, but as we're going through the snow, you could see footprints going up this way, this way, this way. So I realized some people were taking the wrong course, and I went most of the time on the snow with just seeing a few people in front and then following, not really passing anybody. And then I got into Duncan, and then at that point, I realized, well, they told me, I don't know what place they told me, but I realized I didn't pass those people. They're out there somewhere. They're lost. So it was really unusual. But since I had gone over the snow 2 weeks before, I realized the snow's going to take it out of it. So I realized I should hang back, save my energy, and just kind of get through it, because it does take its toll on me. So.
Yeah, so you guys actually, once you hit the road, you kind of showed your foot speed, because by the time you hit the corner of Mosquito Ridge Road in 44, Jim, Jim King had gone from 15th to 7th, so you passed another 8 people in 8 miles? So that's pretty good. And Jim, you went from 8th to 5th, so your leg speed on the road sure helped out to get back to the front of the pack.
Yeah, at Duncan, after refueling, because I was really depleted coming into Duncan, so after refueling, I started feeling better and better, and was really happy that I was catching people.
Yeah, so this is where it really starts to get interesting, because as you guys roll down, in the old days, right, you turned at Road 44 off of there and onto Last Chance Road, so you didn't use Pucker Point, the narrow trail that we use today, but it's just a dirt road that goes for 3.5 miles straight into Last Chance, and you guys roll in together, and you know, the aid station is on the road now, and it used to be kind of down in the mosquito pit, right, you know? You had to go down into that hole by the rusty pipe and then come back out. That's that shot they were showing. But now you guys are side by side. Now, you know, did you think I'm sitting here looking at the guy I'm going to have to be on the track with in another, 12 hours?
I was rattled. I was very aware. I was very aware who this was, and I needed to get away from him as quick as possible.
And you look pretty relaxed, Jim.
Jim had actually passed me just before we got into. There's a part in the film where it shows us coming into Dusty Corners, and so Jim had actually just passed me there, and then I come in, and then we're still fairly close together at Last Chance. Anyway, so my plan was, just stay steady, and I realized I was moving up, and I realized we were moving through back up to the lead again. Anyway, I think I was fourth at that time.
Yeah, it's this is where the split times start to get really painful to read off the page, because as Jim leaves Last Chance, Jim King, he runs a 52-minute split to Devil's Thumb. So this is where we always say, you couldn't drop me out there fresh today and I could do that in 52 minutes. And by the time you get there, you've got the lead again by 3 minutes. So he went from Duncan Canyon to be behind by 35 minutes and 10th place or something. And by the time he gets to Devil's Thumb, he's back in the lead of the entire field by 3 minutes. So you ran an incredible split through Deadwood Canyon. How'd you do that?
I was real happy to be back in the lead and very somewhat surprised. My training, to win the race, you don't have to be a backcountry ranger, but it helps. And for me, I spent the 3 months before at Bible school in the San Bernardino Mountains, just hammering the hills at altitude. And so that's what I was best at. That's what I was looking forward to. Had all kinds of difficulties in the race, but I was looking forward to those canyons and those steep up hills where I felt nobody was going to run better than I was.
I mean, are you starting to get discouraged here, Jim? I mean, in like 4 miles, he takes another, 8 minutes out of the field.
Well, going through the canyons, I stayed steady, but when I didn't realize what he did, the incredible run through the canyons that he did. And when I got into Michigan Bluff, and when they told me the time that he, put 30 minutes on me, that my thoughts were, well, I got to stay with my pace, and the only way possible to catch him would be if he falters.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I noticed in the movie it's kind of funny because they kind of work you a little bit at the top of the thumb. They're like, oh, and this pace is really taking it out of him. He needs a break, and that's where you sit down and you get that pop off of that Gatorade. That Gatorade jug, a glass. We're like, oh, that's a throwback, a glass Gatorade jug. And you're kind of feeling good, and then, they make it sound like you're starting to wear down, and then you run a 120 to Michigan Bluff. I mean, you lost 15 minutes in Deadwood Canyon and another 15 in Michigan Bluff, getting to Michigan Bluff. So by the time you're in Michigan Bluff, you got a 25-minute lead again on everybody. I mean, that's a pretty good charge up that hill.
Yeah, so.
We're all looking for the secrets here, man. Come on.
A lot of things I don't do well, but I do that well.
Yeah. So I mean, you coming in, and we love that part where you sit down and you ask the lady, "Hey, how far am I behind?" And she doesn't tell you, and then she just gets your blood pressure. Yeah, I want to know how far I'm behind. And they go 30 minutes. You did bat an eye, like, yeah, 30 minutes, no big deal.
Well, okay, you gotta. Okay, my background with the race going into this, I didn't run at 82. I won it with Doug in 81, and we did it because everything fell together by hanging back and then just staying steady. Before that, Doug and I in 79 and 80 had bad years by going out and trying to lead the thing and then ending up in trouble. So we learned, Doug and I in '81 learned to hang back and just stay steady, steady, steady through the whole day. And then it's like the film says, if you can run after Forest Hill, you can really motor. So anyway, that was my plan. I just didn't count on somebody putting 30 more minutes on me.
You know, Tim, another situation is that this was a hot year, and so those canyons are baking. And I always felt it was better to get out of them as quick as possible. I don't think you're ahead of the game by spending a lot of time climbing. So, you know, I wanted to motor out of there as fast as I could.
Yeah, I always wondered whether, you know, if you were far enough away somebody, they just, you know, in a way, mentally kind of give up. You know, I know there was a year when I was chasing Mike Morton. This kind of same thing happens here coming up. You've got a 26-minute lead at Forest Hill. You got a 27-minute lead at White Oak Flats. You're not chasing them down yet. You're not closing ground, so it's got to get a little bit discouraging to go, well, I'm pushing as hard as I can. I've got a marathon to go, and I'm still a minute per mile behind this guy. And then, you know, really not too much happens. You guys get to the river crossing, 31-minute lead. In the movie, it sounds like you're falling apart. You're still pulling away.
At White Oak Flat, I felt great, and I was really surprised. I thought, this is incredible. And I was very surprised at how I felt at White Oak.
You know, you go through so many stages of going up and down and feeling good and then not so good. But you have to realize if you stay steady, within, you know, 8 miles later, instead of feeling terrible, you could feel great again. And I experienced that in the previous years. And so, and I know, because I've seen drastic things happen after the river crossing. So I just figured, you know, and I'm one of the ones that didn't make it in previous years because I pushed too soon, and then if I just stayed walking and then jogging, I would have finished really well. And when, you know, in some of the years where Mike Catlin won it and Doug and I faltered, so.
Yeah, so when you look at Jim, you know, you crossed the river. That was a year where we had to boat everybody across, and that, you know, and then you actually get to Auburn Lake Trails. You're still running really well because you're pulling away now. You got a 37-minute lead now at Auburn Lake Trails with, you know, under 15 minutes to go. So are you feeling good at this point, or are you starting to go, oh no, this is not going to end well?
I was feeling great up until Auburn Lake Trails, and all of a sudden I experienced some kind of discomfort. It was an odd sensation that I hadn't experienced before, and I was sick. And so I ate something at Auburn Lake Trails, and I threw it up. And I didn't know that was normal for runners. I was concerned about that. And I didn't know how I was going to finish the race unless I could get things back in me. So I sat down. I was there, I think, about 20 minutes trying to nurse things in. Now, Jim Pellin, he had a strategy that I later adopted and would have served me well. He would race through an aid station, and then he'd get around the corner and he'd, you know, just start walking. But he always wanted to look good going through the aid station. Why would you do that? Well, so I'm there, you know, and I'm trying to get things to stay down, and they won't. And so I finally leave, and I have to walk. Well, you know, I had a great, I thought, psychological edge on Jim. You know, over 30 minutes ahead. He probably, if he's human, he probably thinks he's got second locked up, and he's going to forget about me. Well, he comes in, and you can tell your story, but you know, they tell Jim, "Hey, you look good. You look better than King. He was just here. He looked really bad. He was sitting right there. And in fact, he threw up. And in fact, there it is." That's the way I like to tell it.
Yeah, but that was Anyway, that was what I was looking for, and it sparked the fire. And when I left Auburn Trails, I was on fire. I found some energy that just, anyway, I started running like my marathons, like I do in the marathons. Anyway, so I was on the hunt because they had told me he wasn't feeling good, and that, and I just realized, I just might be able to close the gap before the finish line. So anyway.
Yes, I mean, you spent the 17 minutes at the aid station and left, and in those days, the course didn't go out along the high trail like it does now. It went down Ball-Bearing Hill to the quarry road, so that was even shorter. So in about another 6 miles, you got Highway 49 there for you as the next aid station. You leave there 21 minutes ahead of Auburn Lake Trails, and then when you get to Highway 49, you're still 7 minutes ahead, but you can see that you're losing ground pretty fast.
And I thought, we thought, my pacer was pretty impressed after Cool, after 49 crossing. We were moving pretty well, and yet he still was closing incredibly. But we were, at that point, we were running, and we thought we were doing well.
Did you have any idea how far he was behind you?
I didn't know till we got to No Hands, and we're crossing No Hands. Like I say, we were moving well, so we really didn't think anything was astir. But as we're crossing No Hands, the people on the side of the bridge are pointing to the trail up that we just came down, and I thought it couldn't be.
Well, you're chasing, right? You're thinking, wow, I don't have that much real estate to work with. You're down along the quarry road, which is good running. It's still light out. You guys don't have to use flashlights like the rest of us. And you roll into Highway 49 7 minutes behind, still a minute a mile, and you've got 6.5 miles to go. But you got to be feeling pretty good about now. There's a shot now. I mean, are you thinking now I'm going to win this thing?
No, but I was definitely realizing that I could close the gap, and you leave 49 and then you go up through Pointed Rocks, and on the way down from Pointed Rocks to the bridge, that long downhill, I just hammered. And Chris Turney was pacing me, and we were flying. It was just, anyway. And then we closed in on the bridge, and we could hear cheers for, obviously Jim hit the bridge, and he was there. There were cheers for him, and we were still about a minute from the bridge, and so I realized we closed quite a few. I mean, in that's only like 3 miles or so from 49 to the bridge, and anyway. So that we were just hammering, and it was something else.
Well, when I was talking to these guys earlier tonight, somebody had sent me a little bit of a resume on Jim, and he is a 2:18 marathoner. So he's probably one of the few guys in the race that's ever had really great leg speed and great endurance. It must be a little bit unnerving to think there's a 2:18 marathoner on your wheel, especially going up to Roby Point.
Well, yeah, but I felt it was uphill, and so I felt like I was going to be fine, and we were running well. Even though he was, we knew he was right behind us. We hit all the little roller coaster there before you get to Roby Point, and my pacer trips on a root, and his water bottles go everywhere, and so he says, it's okay, go on, like I'm going to stop. So I left him, and went on.
And so this little thing kind of confused me, because Chris and I are closing in, and we see a guy, and I go, shh, Chris, be quiet, quit. Anyway, we're closing in, and we get close enough, maybe 50 yards, and I realize it's not Jim, it's his pacer. Oh my God, he dropped his pacer. And Chris and I were on a fast pace. We were moving, and I go, oh my God, he picked up the pace. Now I gotta pick it up some more. Anyway, so it's true. I was confused. I'm running out of real estate. Anyway, it was a little unnerving.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, you know, on that downhill, he was closing heavy ground on you, right? He made up 6 minutes and 3 miles, and then, you know, you're thinking, oh, now we're getting into your strength, right? And actually, you got a little charge going back up the hill, thinking, hey, this is my kind of terrain. Until I get to the top of Roby, I might be in charge here. Yeah. But you still got a 218 guy behind you. So, yeah, this is where the split times just start to make your head hurt again. This is where, when I was looking at my split sheet that day in my office, I just went, oh, my goodness, this is nuts. Because even though you look at the split time that you ran to the finish, it was 1:04. Jim Howard had to chase him down running a 56. Wow. So, like I said, if you drop this whole room out there at Highway 49 right now, nobody would run 56 at the end. You had to be a 218 marathoner chasing a great champion and thinking that you're going to have to give everything you had to chase him down.
We climb up to Roby Point, and right when you hit the pavement, and you turn the corner, you hit the pavement, and Roby Point's a half-mile hill, and it's all pavement. Well, it's right at that time when you turn the corner and look up that that's the first time I could see Jim King since I last saw him at Last Chance, and it was crazy. He was sprinting up the hill. I'm sprinting up the hill. Both crews are screaming at us, go, go, go. And it was, you know, this is, what is it, a mile and a half to go? Anyway, my legs, I kind of blocked everything out. And it's something I wanted bad enough to win the race, that the pain that I had in my legs and body and fatigue and everything, it went away. The do it now or regret it, you know. So I went for it, and I'm telling you, those are rare races. I did not feel any pain. I felt strength, and I charged up that hill towards him, and I didn't catch him till after the top.
I was in total pain.
Sorry.
I felt that if I could get to Roby Point, that there's no way he could catch me on that hill. That's what I thought. Arrogant. And back in those days, your crew could come down, and so they did. So they came down, and so I'm running up, and they pull up in the car next, and they say, "It's Howard. He's 100 yards behind you." So, you know, I'm running good. Then they have the audacity. He's 50 yards behind me. So he pulls up, and, you know, and so you try to go with him, you know, and he got a little ahead, and I felt like I started to close, and then he pulled away.
The actual passing occurred, you know, you crest over the top, then I don't know the street name, but you roll down maybe 150 yards, and then there's a street intersection, and it's about quarter mile before the bridge or so, whatever that stretch is. But so it was a downhill roll, and I just flew. I was scared. I was running scared because he was running strong all day, and I didn't know how much he still had in him. And this was a duke out race, and so when I passed him, I didn't know if he was going to respond, and my impression was that he did. And I mean, I know I got to Cherry Street Bridge in front of him, and my thought was just charge downhill and get to the track.
So, tell you're finished.
Oh, well, okay. So Bruce LaBelle, good friend. Previous years, he's always joking. Wouldn't it be neat if you had to do an all-out quarter at the end of the Western States? Well, anyway, what kind of quarter could you do? And, well, I found myself in the very same situation that he had mentioned. I'm hitting the track. It's not a full quarter to the finish line, but I'm hitting the track knowing I have to push all the way to the track, the finish line, because somebody is on my tail, and I don't know how much he's got in him. So anyway, at 31 seconds, it was kind of confusing to the announcers and everything. And for anybody that was there, I don't know if you, I was kind of in a daze, but I was told by friends that they actually announced Jim won it, and then a few seconds later they also, we have another runner on the track. So because way back on Roby Point, going through that check, Jim's in the lead. So the radio communication to the track is, okay, Jim King's coming in, he's coming in for the win. Well, they didn't know all this drama was going on in the last mile and a half. So.
Yeah, I know that Gary Toll, our finish line, he's on the board. He's been at the race almost every year it's happened. He always reminds me, I was watching that finish. He said Jim Howard came in and he kind of, you were spent when you got in. I mean, you cannot say collapse, but they got you over to the stretch and Jim King was like jogging around a few more laps just to warm down. You looked like you could have gotten another 10 if it was uphill and you didn't have Jim behind you.
That may be a bit of an exaggeration. I just had to be careful not to think about food. They're interviewing you on camera, and so I didn't want to throw up on camera.
So now you guys have finished this. You've probably gone over this a million times in your head. Is there anything that you guys thought you'd do differently that day that would have maybe changed the race in one way or another?
How could I shave a third of a second per mile?
We were talking about you sitting at Devil's Thumb having that Gatorade. But yeah, I mean, it always seems like you finish one of those, whether you win or you come in 20th, you barely make the cutoff in 30 hours, and you always go, oh, now next year I'm going to come back and I'm going to make all these improvements, and it just seems like there's always something different that you're thinking about.
Yeah, I was in awe of the performance. So I was satisfied the fact that this guy drove me physically beyond anything I ever thought I could do. So I was thankful for that, and I had to kind of, I said the results are, up to God, and I'm supposed to give my very, very best performance. So I have to, believe I did that. So I was pretty satisfied, and looking forward to the next year. But tell them about your mile repeats.
When you train and you get in the best shape you can get in, and then you can recover quickly. And so I had no soreness the next day. On the Tuesday following, I went and did a workout that was mile repeats, something I do about every 10 days at that time. And I did mile repeats, 4 of them, full recovery, 4:30, 4:30, 4:40, 4:44. And that was the Tuesday after Western State.
That explains a lot, huh?
So there's a little reason there why Jim couldn't catch me.
I was in traction.
Well, we can't feel too bad for you because you came back and broke the course record the next year and then won the race in '85. So you got a few more times to be the first guy on the track. So that must have been kind of a redeeming way to complete the race.
Absolutely, yeah. I was very motivated to train hard and to improve everywhere I could, and very thrilled that I was able to win the next year.
Yeah, so you can kind of see when I was looking at these split times, there was way more to that story, and even to watching the movie. It's we're going to open it up to the group here to see if you guys want to delve a little bit into what we haven't gotten into. Quick show of hands just to see how many people actually ran the race in '83. Bruce? Myself? That's it? How about anybody did a crew pace or work an aid station that year? Crew pace or work an aid station? Raise your hand. Wow. Okay, how many people weren't even born for the race? Yeah, that's more like it. It's been a while, but I tell you, These guys look like I think Jim could still go out and do 4 by 4:30 on a Tuesday night, and so could Jim. I think these guys are in as good a shape as any couple guys I know. So, you want to use his mic?
So anybody that wants to get a question going here, you can just kind of come up here and ask the question, and we'll hand the mic back over to Jim and let these guys kind of dig in a little bit. Anybody want to ask a question?
I have a question.
All right.
For Jim Howard, I was just curious, your pace from Pointed Rocks to the bridge, per mile pace, you have any idea?
No, but it's downhill and I was just flying. So at the kind of shape I was in, maybe 6 minute pace.
You know, one question I always wanted to ask you, Jim King, was, you were someone that just thought I was just going to run the whole course. I know we talked to Craig with the story about when you had found out about the race and you talked to some people like, well, how do you do this thing? The guy said, well, you run and you walk, and he goes, and then you kind of went, you mean if I just run the whole thing, I'll win? Yeah, almost everybody else will be walking part of it, and if you just run the whole way, there's no way they're going to be able to keep up with you. But you must have had some secret training. I mean, Jim's he's got his speed, and he's a marathoner, but you didn't run a lot of ultras. You didn't go to a lot of events. I mean, you must have had some secrets that you used to get in shape for the race, Devil's Thumb Hill repeats or something that you did that got you there.
Well, Jim was a backcountry ranger doing survival training and that kind of thing. I was in the San Bernardino Mountains at Bible school, and I would get up at 5 in the morning to go for two and a half hour runs, and I'd push the pace on every uphill I had. It kind of wiped me out for studies. I'd fall asleep in class every day, and Jeremiah was called the weeping prophet, and all the students, they called me the sleeping prophet. But yeah, I hammered the hills.
Okay, another question? Yeah, over here.
Yeah, Jim King, I'm curious, between 84 and 85, I think there was some course changes. Did you find the 85 course much tougher than what you did in 84?
I don't think so. I mean, they took us around to the dam overlook, and it was a longer course. So I ran 16:02 on that course, almost tying the old course record. I brought the record down to 14:57, on the shorter course. But I don't think the course change, I don't think made any difference in my performance.
Okay.
Did you say anything to each other when you had the big pass?
Did you guys talk to each other during the pass? Everybody's wanted to know that today.
Actually, no. This was a Duke out race, so but when I tied with Doug in 1981, Doug and I had a phenomenal day, and we're hung back, and at the monument we're looking at each other like, well, what are you doing back here? Well, what are you doing back here? Anyway, and as we went through the day in 81 with Doug Latimer and myself, we just, at Forest Hill, we said, actually at Hodgson's cabin, we joked about time. And then it became reality in Forest Hill. We said, okay, we're still together at 49, we'll tie. Well, 49 came, and Doug and I were totally in agreement with tying, but our partner, our pacers and our crew were going, no, you can beat him, no, get him. Anyway, but the experience of tying with Doug in 1981 was great, and I think of him as kind of an older brother. But it wasn't the same feeling as 1981 and 1983 when we're duking it out all day, and then we get to the point and I'm passing. I mean, I did think about it, but I didn't ask.
No. Yeah, it briefly went through my mind, but it wasn't brought up, and we had to work it out for us.
Amen to that. All right, more questions? Who else? All right, Mark.
Both gyms. Are you guys still running? How often? How far? What distances? If you still run.
Yeah. Yeah, I run about 6 days a week, and I do generally about an hour. I focus on uphill running. If I can get up to Donner Summit and run Castle Peak or on the PCT Trail, that's my favorite running. Although I just injured myself a couple weeks ago. Okay, so I'm looking at the records for guys my age, and so you're looking and it says the mile, it says 4:35 for the mile. And you go, well, how can that be? That seems incredibly soft. Can't believe nobody's cracked that. So you find yourself on the track. You do a few fast laps, and the hamstring gives you a little warning. Okay, that's enough. Go back a week later, you can go a little bit further, and then the other hamstring goes. So anyway, I hyperextended my knee, so that slowed me down a little bit. But generally, my running's been really good.
About the same. I run about 6 days a week, and today I covered 5 easy miles. I have an ongoing right knee problem, so it kills me on the downhill. So I run a lot of uphills for training. I do coach, so I jump into intervals and still do speed work. So mile repeats and half miles. Anyway, so yeah, running's a big important part of my life, and plus my coaching. So.
I got a question. Did you guys talk about running after you were done with Western States? How hard was it to come up with a goal to stay motivated? As far as once you didn't feel like you could train for trying to win Western States, when did you guys decide I'm not coming to this race anymore, or I'm going to choose other goals or other pursuits to try to go after?
My stomach problems just increased in competition and got more and more difficult, and so that eventually edged me out. And life responsibilities, raising a family, and all the important things.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that I kept training and was able to train and enjoy the trails, but focused on other priorities.
I think it's common. Anyway, I have a history of having problems in Western states. I don't do well with eating solid food. And so both the 1981 and 1983, I didn't eat any food. I just had fluids. After 1983, I had a couple bad years of Western states where I didn't finish, and at some point I just said, nah, I need to do something else. So, and I have a long history with riding tie, and so riding tie, the horse goes full distance, but the humans share the distance, and so riding tie has been my focus.
What sort of innovations in equipment and supplies that we have these days do you guys wish you had back then?
Bigger water bottles.
Do you have an answer?
Okay, when we started this whole process, it was I forget the name of the company. Anyway, there was some runners coming up with some fancy belts and different types of water bottles, but it's gone kind of through a history of change, and there was no goose, so the kind of what you can eat for the race that settles well. The peanut butter and jelly sandwich works, but not for me in a long distance. And it works in a training run, but if I'm pushing, so I've used some of the gels and stuff. They work. You know, I had this weird hat you saw, and I had a compartment there where I put crushed ice in, and then I always dipped it. It does work, and there was some hot years where, and the aid stations were not like they are now. They were far, you know. So you had to utilize the water sources, not necessarily drink them if they're, but use them for cooling your body. So anyway, it's changed.
Yeah, I think there's better comprehensive nutrition today that would prevent maybe some of that throwing up, and what we've learned about taking protein in replacement drinks is a big help today. That would stave off a lot of muscle damage. So there's been, I think, big breakthroughs in that, even better than D-Fizz Coke and Oreo cookies that we did in the old days. But so that would be a big breakthrough that would have helped, I think. Yeah, we shared a great experience at Leadville in '87, and both of us just terribly sick, throwing up, having a really difficult time, and nothing seemed to work. Everything at the aid stations that we tried, we would just throw up, and we needed protein. So finally, Jim found the perfect protein meal. What was it?
You know, at mile 72 or whatever at Leadville, they had like 3 tables of almost anything you can think of, and nothing looked good to me. I was sick, I was pressure built up, and I just thought, okay. And so my crew asked me, well, what do you want? We'll go into town and get it. I go, bring me a hamburger with just the bun and the meat patty and a milkshake, vanilla milkshake. And then Jim was sick, and we asked him what he wanted, and I think he said grilled cheese sandwich. So our crew went in to town, then came back, and I know within 3 minutes of getting a couple bites in, pressure started releasing, and then I started walking, and I walked to the next aid station at Leadville, and then I started running, and in the last 14 miles of Leadville, I was running fast again. So there's something to the oils and the salt and the grease and the meat and the protein and everything that you should take later in the race.
Thank you, Dr. Howard.
Way in the back.
Are you guys ever going to run Western State to the end? Maybe just for the fun of it?
I don't know. I love the race, and I loved those people on the screen there. Still do. And but I don't know if I'll run it again or not.
Yeah, he's not a just for fun running kind of guy.
Yes, I would like to run it again. However, I do have a ongoing knee problem, which downhills hurt, so I have to deal with figuring out the knee problem. So.
Yeah, I want to know what you guys think about the changes in the sport, you know, how it's so much more popular and getting a little bit more commercial than maybe it was back then, and just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, back in the day, I was pushing the commercial thing. I was very ambitious, you know, wanted sponsorship, wanted prize money, wanted the sport to excel, and so it doesn't faze me too much. And it was an interesting time. It was the early '80s, and we come through, you know. not to wax too philosophical, but it was a time of optimism, and so we were bringing back to the Roots event, bringing cutting edge competition, and it was kind of a clash of cultures in a way. There was a great camaraderie, and it was almost like a backyard barbecue in familiarity in many ways, and yet at the same time, you've got some guys that are really pushing the envelope athletically. And so it was in, and this is when triathlons got their start, and so it was just an interesting time. And so I'm very, very pleased that so many people are able to experience ultramarathoning and trail racing particularly. And Western States has continued to be the standard, in my opinion, of endurance athletics.
I don't know how to respond to the question other than I think it's good that there's more and more people enjoying the sport. As far as commercialism of the sport, if it promotes the sport in a healthy way, that's great. If it doesn't, then maybe we should. Anyway, and so all in all, I think we're good on the amount of population that are enjoying the sport.
Well, you guys could probably get in the race if you asked. Most people couldn't. 2,300 people trying to get into the lottery, or 2,300 people in the lottery is pretty high demand for the 369 starter spots. So it's different.
Yeah, I realize that's a problem for people that have a goal of doing Western States and trying to, time their training and to the right year and doing it. And, yeah.
To kind of piggyback on that, how aware were you two of the cameras during the race? The helicopters overhead, the cameras in your face while questions were being asked. Did you play up a little bit to the camera presence, or did you not notice it at all?
I was aware, and yeah, I played a little bit. I wanted to show my best. I don't think I was totally vain, but I tried to, please my sponsors and look good. And I'm running against a guy that looks like he just escaped from a burn unit.
Yeah, I didn't look very well, so and luckily they don't have very much of me on the film, which is good. No, a couple of those shots are, if you look in the film, if you see it again, you'll see the same shot like 3 different times. They didn't have very much of me, and so they put it in. No, I think me hanging back, the film crew really didn't think I was the threat. So anyway.
Yeah, they have a lot of finish line footage of you.
I did when I was lost in the snow and the helicopter I was looking for some kind, hoping they could direct me somehow. No help.
How long was it before you guys finally got a chance to compare notes of that 83 race?
A long time. We're at high altitude running camp maybe 4 years ago, about 4 years ago.
Can you talk about your crews that you had that day and things that they did well for you and things that maybe that in future races they did better? Or just about the crews in general?
Or about any rules that came out of you?
We were talking earlier about the Jim King rules that were established after I had a large crew, and which seemed to grow every year. And there was no restrictions on the cruise. And I would have a captain, maybe my brother, that would organize them. But so they were well organized, and they were split up to go to different aid stations. And but yeah, after 85, I think they were all wearing red T-shirts, so they just stood out everywhere. And so they established some rules after that, limiting the cruise down. But they did a great job. I had enough friends and family to give me a massage, to encourage me, to everything that I needed.
My dad was half my crew, and then my wife was my other half, and they did a real good job, and they alternated checkpoints. My dad got some warnings on speeding, and he's not, if you knew him, he's not one to speed at all, but he was just wanting to get to the next check, to be there on time and stuff. I don't know. I had a small crew, but they did well. Something I don't think we really covered, but the film showed it. The sun cups running over the snow. The sun cups were like 18 inches across, and it was slip and slide, and so that was very fatiguing. And so going over the snow. And I've ran some of the other snow years where the sun cups weren't that big, but it was slip and slide and just really slow. But
there was a lot of sharing back then between the crews among the top runners, and so there was great camaraderie between those crews. And my crew just loved Ray Clark, and they'd be working with Jim's dad, and so that was kind of a fun thing back then.
Yeah, Craig and I did a podcast last night for the rules of Western States, and we're going to re-show the movie and see how many violations we can find. Jim's got a big crew. Jim's not wearing his number. People got trekking poles. I wrote about 10 finishers that year if the rules were in place.
I want to explain the number. Number 12.
Contesting.
There was no protest filed. You're okay.
So I knew I was going to be late checking in, so I called up and they we got your number, just come up late. And I was on a controlled burn, and then so I got off the controlled burn, got up there late, couldn't find whoever was supposed to find, Shannon or whoever, and that had my number. So other people said, "Don't worry about it, just get it in the morning." Well, morning came, and no, just get on the line, just start. So I started the race without a number.
You guys follow the race right now? Currently?
Yes.
So who are your picks, men and women?
That's gotta be you.
I don't think I follow it close enough. I do like the fact that there's young, aggressive runners that are pushing the envelope, and so I'm very impressed with the latest crop, and anyway, just very excited. And there's the competitive edge, but there's also the camaraderie. And so it's very impressive to me, and they are on in the men's field, which I relate to, just a great competition and great things for the future. That being said, I'm looking forward to a very hot year some year to see what that'll do.
Are you guys going to be around to give out buckles this year? Maybe. Maybe.
If we're invited.
If we ask you.
Yeah.
I have one other confession, and that is, I think we're both agreed that Ray Clark would have won the race had we not had the aid station people asking him questions.
Strategy. Anyone? Last one. One more right here.
Two questions, real quick. How old were you when you won that race, and what was your background coming up to that race? As in, how long have you been running then?
I was 26 years old. I won it my first year at 25, and I had ran high school, and college cross country and track, and then gravitated after I graduated. I ran London to Brighton, my first ultra, and so then I won in 1981. I won Lake Tahoe 72 miler, so that's my first big win, and I felt, because I always had, even though I wasn't that caliber of a runner, I always felt that there was a destiny for me to do well in running.
1981, I think, if I'm correct, 27 years old. 1983, 29. I ran cross country and track through high school and college. Then I did marathons. I did my first marathon in high school at 2:32. Anyway, I eventually got my marathon time down to 2:18. But then I did anyway, so yeah, I was well adapted to running.
Other than Jim, how many 2:32 high school marathoners? None?
Okay, I think we're just going to wrap it up here. I personally want to thank both you guys. Having someone that, ran the race that year and just was marveled at the performance, and then, like I said, once I got the split sheet and, looked inside what was going on that day, just phenomenal performance on both sides. And, I've been lucky enough to have been first and second, so I know how you guys feel. It's a little different feeling each time, but really thanks for taking the time to enlighten us here, and what a great show that day and tonight. Thanks a lot.